David H. Lawrence the 17th, because the 16th other David H. Lawrences were just not good enough for this show. So welcome, David.
Hi. How's it going?
Very good. And we were just talking before I hit the live button that we might be live. And then, it looks like LinkedIn says I'm not approved for LinkedIn yet. So that's interesting. So we might not be on LinkedIn, but we should be on the Facebook and the YouTube. If you are on Facebook, jump on over to YouTube because that's where the chat will be happening. We're also setting up. I'm going to introduce you to the Puppet Master. If you don't know him already, you probably do if you're on Facebook. As someone said today, does anyone not know David H. Lawrence the 17th on Facebook? So we'll find out in the chat. But we're setting this up. We're with David right now live to talk a little bit about what it's like to be back on set in Hollywood in a post-COVID world. He's going to tell us a little bit about perhaps sex dolls and scenes that we can't have any physical human contact. But he can't share everything yet. So we may bring him back for a quick segment on August 12th when your show airs. But in the meantime, this is the setup. We're going to talk a little bit about the interview that David and I did back in March, right before the shutdown. We got to sit down in downtown San Diego. So if you're wondering why we're not wearing masks and why we're sitting so close, it's because we were allowed to do that back in the day. But our conversation was fascinating. I love the interview with you, by the way, David. You're such a pro. So I thought we would share a little bit about the backstory, some of the things we did there, but also give people an update of what it's like to be back on set, because you were lucky enough to be, you got a call about a week ago or two to start back as an actor on a set. And you can't tell us everything, but can you tell us a little bit about what it's like to be back on the studio?
Well, first of all, this is a very meta thing. I've never done a pre-recorded interview about the pre-recorded interview that we pre-recorded and done an interview with.
Very meta, very meta.
So that's coming up at the bottom of the hour. But between now and then, I don't know what gets Deb so excited about chatting with the people that she chats with, but whatever it is, she should bottle it and sell it because it's awesome. It is so easy to be a guest for you. And so, yeah, I kind of don't know what I can say and what I can't say. Here's the thing. When you go on set these days, it used to be when I first started, maybe a decade ago, a little more than a decade ago, when I got my first roles on television, you would go on set and in your trailer would be what are called your start documents. And it would be the contract that you're going to sign and, some sort of notice from the network or the studios or whatever. But it was like maybe 3 or 4 sheets of paper. And one of them was are you there? I can't see you anymore.
I am. I gave you the full set.
Okay, good. So, I was like, where'd she go? I'm talking to the universe. There's nobody there. All right.
It worked out well.
All right. So anyway, if you want to do that, that's fine. All right. I got it. So you'd go and it would be like maybe 2 or 3 sheets of paper. Today, and I saw it started to inch up over the years, but today it's a good half-inch thick with, have you read the sexual harassment and sign that you've read the sexual harassment brochure and regulations. And there's a non-disclosure agreement for the show producers and the network and the studio and your mom. I mean, it's like, and so one of the things that I signed, or several of the things that I signed, and were told about over and over again by the casting office for the show. And then when I got on set for the show, keep it quiet, don't say anything, because these fans of this show, they will kill for spoilers, right? So don't say anything. Okay, I got that. I mean, I'm one of these people. There are actors in the community that can't wait to send out a note on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and you name it, Instagram, their mailing list to the casting community. I'm going to be on such and such a show on such and such a date. Catch me at 7:30 Eastern, whatever. And I would never dream of doing that. Number one, because I'm old school. I want listeners and viewers to be surprised.
Yeah.
I know in today's society, it's like, no, we demand spoilers. We demand to know what's going on. And I don't believe in that. I believe that I want to let people be pleasantly and lovingly surprised by me
Yeah.
popping on their screen,
Mhm.
without them knowing I'm coming.
Like,
If
what?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
First of all, it makes for a much better experience when you're actually telling
Mhm,
a story in an episodic.
mhm,
And there's also that one little chance that maybe you
mhm.
got cut out of the show.
Right.
And you likely don't want to be that guy who's like, "Oh man, I'm really sorry, guys. Yeah, so maybe next time." I just don't want that.
Yeah,
So
sure.
I don't do that anyway. But in this case, with the times that we're living in and the changes that have had to be made because of the pandemic
Mhm.
and the fact that they shut everything down, very wisely,
Yep.
um, and they made a lot of plans and went through a lot of protocol creation to create a space where we're all safe to produce, the crew, the cast, the production team, the directors, the producers, and slowly ramping back up with those protocols in place, that it's actually become a news story.
Mm.
And I thought I was just going to, like, okay, I'm going to confess. I did tell my mom, because my mom is a big fan of the show that I'm going to be on. And I knew that the only people that she would tell would be her parakeet. That was it. But now, because this has become, it was one of the very first shows, it was the first show back producing. They were the first show to open up the studio, get back into producing. And because of that, and this was one of the very first episodes that they produced, certainly the first episode with guest stars,
Mm.
um, it became a news story in and of itself.
Right.
And so all of a sudden, Access Hollywood and other, now that I found out, other outlets have picked it up and done a story about it.
Mhm.
I still think, like, I'm still under NDA, even though it's already out of the bag. So
Exactly.
I'm going to play things safe and
That's
just
smart.
say, yes, there's going to be a show. And
Yep.
I'm pretty sure now that Access Hollywood has taken footage from the scene that I shot, to explain how intimate scenes are produced in the story package that they created,
Mhm.
I'm not going to get cut out of the show. So that's about as far as I'm going to take it. But it
Mhm.
was fascinating. And I can talk about what happened and how things were done and how testing was done and how things were kept safe. For you, Deb, I will talk about anything that you want. But
Right.
that I'm prepared to at least hint at without revealing all the details that I think I'm still legally bound not to do.
We have David H. Lawrence XVII willing to risk his NDA just for the share of this show. And
Right.
even though it is might
My
be
whole
down
career
the
is on the line. Yep. Yep.
And those of you who are just tuning into the live show, welcome. We have David H. Lawrence XVII, and I posted something earlier asking people how many of my friends saw Heroes back in the day, which of course got a lot of laughs because back in the day wasn't that long ago. But it's interesting when they reply with "Yata" or "Save the cheerleader, save the world." Like that's back in the day when we would have to tune in every week and we were in suspense to watch it because we couldn't binge on it like we do now with Netflix. So in the interview that we're going to premiere at the bottom of the hour at 7:30, it's going to go on YouTube. So I'll share it in the comments. David and I will be in the chat, but it was a pre-recorded interview. But I wanted to bring him in to talk a little bit about number one, being back in Hollywood producing, but also a few things that happen in this set that, for instance, so he teaches a lot of things like how to look into the camera, what to do with your hands, different things about lighting. There were a few things even with the maybe right before the bottom of the hour. I'll show you what he taught me with the iPhone, because our set was in this dark hotel in San Diego. It was an old bank and the lighting was horrible. And we only shot it. It was a 2-camera shot, but it was an iPhone. So the 1-camera shot was on David because he was the host or he was the guest. So we want to make sure the main shot is on him. So as he's sharing and dispensing his wisdom, he could talk directly into the camera. One of the things that happens, and you can mention it in the chat when you notice it, is I told him that because it was just him and I, and we were just shooting our conversation, recording it, there wasn't a camera crew. So every once in a while, I would leave my chair to make sure we were still rolling and recording and make sure everything was good. So there were a few times I would set him up with a question, and then I would leave my shot, focus on the second camera shot, and I would go behind the camera just to make sure it was rolling and recording. Well, if anyone knows, like when you're talking to someone, all of a sudden you lose a line of sight. So he shared a little bit about what he did. So I don't know if you want to elaborate a little bit on that here, because we didn't elaborate too much in that. We talked about it at the end of the show, but talk a little bit about what you used to do with these big time celebrities when you would read lines, what you would do when the celebrity wasn't there that you were in a scene with.
Well, I get that you were a one-man crew.
Yeah.
And you had to not only be the writer and the director and the producer and the camera person and the sound person and the host. You had to do all these things, right?
Yeah.
And, when you're a guest star on a television show, which at this point I've done a little over 100 times, there are times when either the production requires or because of the behavior of a big star on a show that doesn't really want to be bothered when what's called turned around, when they turn around to shoot scenes from toward the guest star, and they're like, I'll be in my trailer. Boom, and they're gone. And so I either would be acting with a stand-in, possibly sometimes, or nothing, a blank wall, and that's fine. Look, I get it. The people are people, and I got no problem with that. I don't care. They want to go off to their trailer and call their agent, whatever they want to do. It's no skin off my nose, But when you had to get up and go check the camera, my job was, let's say you were getting up and leaving right now. I would still be looking at my camera and facing it and pretending that you were there. Looking away as normal, looking back and checking in with you as normal, not like following you as you walked away to check the camera, still talking to you and answering your question. So there's little things like that. And there's a great book called Secrets of Screen Acting that just is a treasure trove of all the little things that you never hear that should never even become part of what the audience is aware of, that you learn as you work on camera, as opposed to on stage,
right?
Or as opposed to voiceover, right? Different ways of doing performance, and making the illusion, the frame of truth is what, Patrick Tucker, who wrote the book, called it. The illusion that you're still connected to another person, to the other actor, to the story, to the emotion of the story and everything, is part of the artifice that we create that is actually the truth of the story. So I don't know, is that what you were talking about?
Yeah. Well, and I actually put the book, Secrets of Screen Acting, because I'm going to make the video interview that we did that's going to air a required watching for all my clients. And now this is going to be the next book that they get, because one of the things that I really enjoyed, David, because like you said, I was director, producer, host, right? That was a one-man show, because what I've learned is when I go to events, I now make sure I bring my recorder, both phones, and like a small little tripod so I could walk around the conference without being encumbered either with a crew, hiring a crew. I don't know when I'm going to have a really good conversation. So I've just decided I'm going to capture this, even if it's not perfect footage, right? Even if it's not perfect television quality production crew set. And that way I can capture more conversations. So this one-man show, we were doing that, but then I went back and I edited it. And I know you're a big fan on just throw the clips, the intro and the outro. I like to add a little visual elements and graphics.
You are a dense, and this is not an insult, you are a dense production fanatic. You love the dense. I can't wait to see what you've done with this, but I've watched your other interviews, and I know that you want to make it visually interesting and very visually stimulating. And also, it's a pattern interruption. I'm always guilty of just sort of like talking to the camera and just figuring my own personal, enthusiasm and whimsy will keep people's attention. But I know that when you change things up, when you jump to a different, point of view, when you add a title, when you do something visually, it's going to arrest the viewer in a way that brings them back around in case they've become sort of mesmerized. And the other thing that you did, you were also your own wardrobe and makeup person. So you did that, and that I don't think you have to worry about at all. you just did it. And so, yeah, it's a brand new, every day is a brand new era in the way we communicate with each other via video. I mean,
Yes.
I've been working on a course. My big course is voheroes.com, where I teach people how to do voiceover. And that's because I did voiceover and have done voiceover for about 50 years. And but I'm working on another course called Camera Ready You. And in that course, I'm going to be talking about how prevalent and pervasive and required video production is as a personal skill set in today's world. If it wasn't for YouTube and iPhones and Androids and all of the cameras that we carry around, these beautiful cameras that we carry around in our pockets, it's changed everything. One of the things that I say is that when I was growing up as a kid and I would watch and I would wonder how they make films and how they do television shows, and the news was fascinating to me. Maybe at that point in our collective species history, maybe 100,000 people had ever been on film or video in the entire time up through the 70s, 80s, and 90s that there has been film and video.
Right.
100,000 people among the billions of people in the world. That's how many people were actors and broadcasters and that sort of thing. Today, there's likely only 100,000 people or so left that haven't been on video yet in some way. And when you think about how getting a job is like, you got to look good. You got to show some skills, no matter what the job is. I don't care if you're selling real estate, if you're an accountant, if you have to do a presentation on Zoom in front of a client, it doesn't matter. You have to understand how to do visual presentation. So I commend you tremendously for getting your stuff together and doing it the way you do it.
Well, thank you. And what I loved and what I want my clients to do when they're looking at this video, and if you're not a client, you just follow me to get video production tips. Watch David in this interview as he engages not only with me as the host, but with you with the camera. I loved it. The other thing that was a pleasure that people wouldn't see unless they saw like a behind the scenes camera is David was super easy to direct. And what I realized afterwards, like, it's because he's a pro, he's used to having a director. So we would talk and he would say something really profound and really good. And I'd be like, talk to that camera. And he would just instantly go right to that second camera, repeat his lines, essentially repeat his thoughts. And for people that you're working with, whether they're business owners or whatever, they have a really hard time repeating themselves. Whereas actors just know, okay, it's time to repeat my line. And even though it wasn't a line that you memorized from a script, if you've shared a thought and then the director behind the camera is producing the show and they're saying, hey, just repeat that a little bit. Just think about what you just said and then come back with whatever it is, more emotion or more direct eye contact with that lens. And again, David's going to teach you that in this interview. But I loved it. It was brilliant. And then it was an hour show. And I think maybe I cut out two things just because I think we had a memory lapse on remembering a name. And then I was able to use the magic of editing. But otherwise, it was pretty much the entire interview was there intact because David is such a pro. And I would just like go like this to point at the camera and he would just know to look at the second camera. So watch him. And in the comments, as you watch the video, whether you're watching this in the future, if you can't watch it tonight, but you're catching this and you're watching this tomorrow, a week from now, go ahead and drop in the comments. Number one, when you notice when David's being a pro and when he's looking at the camera. The other thing is, for those of you who know NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, note when David does this, because there are a few times, and I didn't notice this. This is really interesting. I didn't notice it as I was engaging with you, David. And all of a sudden in the editing bay, I was like, oh my God, he totally did an NLP on me right there. And like you said, for me to say something. And of course I repeated it like the master puppet master that you are. And I was the puppet. I was like, wow, that stuff works. So again, it was like this kind of movement that you're like, yeah, tell me more, basically bringing more information out of a person, which you can do if you are an interview host. You can get information out of your guest or host or whatever it is, whatever role you're playing. So watch David in this interview because you'll see a few masterful scenes. And there was a clip that I tried to put in there, David, that you had given me, that you had permission to use from the studios, of you being the puppet master in Heroes in the TV show. However, YouTube then alerted me that while it would play for anyone in the US, it would not play for people in Australia and a few other countries that I have a lot of listeners. So it then said, cut the clip. And I said, okay. So you won't be able to see that. You'll actually, Skylar, was that his name? You'll see him for like a second.
Skylar.
It's been a while. I didn't pay attention to him. I paid attention to the puppet master. But you'll see him like for a bit. That's when the clip gets cut out and then it goes right back to you. Meanwhile, it was such a masterful edit. I was kind of disappointed. But the question that I have, and those of you who want to see the clip that David was in with the puppet master and then see all of the other roles, because you've been in The Mentalist, Price is Right, there's a bunch of other things. Just go to David H Lawrence XVII.com and you spell that out.
XVII. Yeah, exactly.
I was going to say X5.
Yeah, do you want to put, I don't even know if I can, this is the first time I've ever been on StreamYard, so I'm still kind of like playing with the interface, and I've muted myself a couple of times, but I don't think I'm able to chat because I'm not logged in. So if you want to do that, go ahead, but
David H. Lawrence XVII, X5, I. And he talks about how he was named David H. Lawrence XVII. But as I type in the website so that you guys can watch some of the previews from his demo reel, if you can tell me in the last few minutes that we have before we jump over to the interview and continue this in chat, but when you were the puppet master, you get thrown in the scene, so they'll see that in the demo reel. Did you have a stunt double? Because you fell pretty far.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, Frankie was my stunt double. He's a great guy.
I was wondering if it was the guy from Billions, because he looks a lot like you. I wondered if he was your stunt double.
No. If anything, I would, I have a, everybody has like a one floor elevator pitch, right? Mine is the reach for the button pitch. Mine is I kind of sum up what I do as Paul Giamatti meets Uncle Fester.
I saw that on your site.
Yeah, and it's like, I get that a lot. I get Paul Giamatti a lot, but on the show, whenever there was a scene like that, there was somebody thrown through the air who was dressed in the same outfit that I was dressed in, and was bald and was chubby and was, and you saw him from behind. You didn't see his face as he was flying through the air. And then my job was to sort of, like I was on the ground as they started the shoot, and I had to pick myself up by about 3 inches and then go, ugh. And that was it.
Yeah.
And then they would edit, the actual guy who was on a wire being thrown through the air. I mean, it was a good 8 feet, and it was I wouldn't want to do that work. That scares the crap out of me. I could not do that work.
I'd want to wear padding or something, or
like underneath he was wearing a full padded suit, partly to make himself look as big as I am, as heavy as I am, but also to prevent himself from getting injured. But it looked great, didn't it? It looked like it was me. And then I had to go.
Like, stunts like Tom Cruise, or does he say no? Like I need a stunt double. Paul Giamatti, come in here.
And then I had to go in with ADR, and I had to revoice the yell as I was going through the air, because they want to sort of add that Doppler effect, that that kind of like coming and going thing.
Yeah.
And so I had to go in and go, ah. Yeah, that was that was what I had to do. Right. And I actually show that clip, including the ADR work, in an article on voheroes.com about the voicing of that scene, and yet another way that voice actors do their work. It just so happened that I was able to do it without them having to bring in another voice talent to dub over what I was doing, because I'd done it a million times before doing ADR.
Yeah.
But anyway.
You do a lot of voiceover work now, yeah?
I've been doing voiceover work for now close to 50 years. And I grew up doing radio. I was in radio for the first 35 years. I've only been doing on-camera work for about a dozen years now. I moved to LA in 2003, and I did so because I thought maybe this amazingly beautiful face and this gorgeous physique would be great on camera for the goofy next door neighbor, the uncle nobody really wants to talk to, the frat boy that never grew up. I just wanted to see if I could approach the same amount of success that I had on radio on camera, and it's turned out pretty good.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, and you said, I think we discussed in the interview, so I'll let people watch, but David H. Lawrence XVII was only supposed to be seen on Heroes for like an episode or two, and he shares what the secret is to getting not one, not two, but 3 seasons, but getting that repeat callback. I don't know if it's a callback, but repeat appearance on a show. He shares the secret of what to do to get kicked off, like someone else did in Heroes. I don't know if you remember revealing that.
I don't. I gotta caution you. I don't think that it's a reproducible secret. I think it was. I think it was absolutely being at the right place at the right time.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, I was supposed to be killed in the episode that I started. That I was supposed to appear just in that episode. Heroes was doing a series called Heroes Villains, and their modus was you'd meet a villain in an episode, and that villain would get killed by the special team. But they liked what I did, and they changed that.
So that's why we call you America's favorite villain, because you stuck. They couldn't kill you off for a while. And I also love that you didn't even give.
I can do that. I'm America's favorite villain.
Favorite villain. Aww. That's what we call it when we brought you on the expo that doesn't exist anymore. But that's what we called you behind the scenes. Okay. I don't know if everyone does, but that's what we called you. Yeah. Now, before we invite you, everyone who's here, again, whether you're watching in the future or you're here with us live, we're going to premiere the interview with David and I, and we'll be in the chat. So if you have any questions, if not, we're going to go take a nap. But before we hop over there, are you able to talk a little bit about sex dolls in Hollywood and how they're using them?
So, everybody wants to stay safe. That's the number one priority. Certainly, we all want to get back to work. It's not just actors. It's not just directors. It's writers. It's casting. It's makeup, hair, camera people, editors, promoters, the networks, they want more content. And to do that safely, at least now, until we have a cure, some sort of a vaccine or some sort of therapeutic that really works on coronavirus, you have to minimize the interaction between actors. And nobody wants to get rid of, HBO would go out of business if there wasn't sex scenes. It's like, like when you think about HBO product, it's like, it's pretty much the same product that other people have, well written and so on, but with really dirty sex scenes, right?
Game of Thrones.
What?
Like Game of Thrones, really.
Yeah, exactly. And then really violent, horrific, scenes as well. And so because they're going to do that, the way those scenes are shot don't necessarily require seeing someone's face. And so they'll shoot both characters engaged in what's very, very clinical movements. Okay, now place your hand on her breast. Okay, grab him. Okay, not so hard. We want to edit into that. It's not nearly as sexy as it ends up looking on the screen. In fact, it's a little annoying. But now you have those scenes happening with sex dolls, and then they marry the shots together, just like they're going to do on the episode of the episodic that I did. And thank God somebody had the idea to create sex dolls. Otherwise it would be mannequins.
Perfect time, right? You think about how we've accelerated the digital age in business, right? Everyone's doing business online, virtual Zoom meetings, right? Like you and I have been doing this for quite some time because you've been teaching courses and teaching voiceover work and all of these things. Like he has courses where he talks a little bit about that. And I'll put that in the link here as well. So you could check out David's course. It's phenomenal. And if you're serious about being good on camera and producing something that's professional to stand out from your competition, highly recommend you take his course. Teaches you about lighting, about looking in the camera. And he talks a little bit about that in this interview that you're about to see that's about to premiere in about 1 minute that we're going to hop over. But go check that out as well. And then what was the series that you were in? What's the show that we're going to tune into? Oh, that's right. You can't say yet. He's like, mum is the word. Look, I couldn't even pull it out. But I think we might. So we have, a quick announcement. We have William Hung. Yes, the American Idol William Hung himself with Shebang.
Oh, wow.
He'll be on next week's show. And then I think is that the 12th? Is that when I'm looking at the calendar? Yes, the 12th. So that's when your episode would air, right?
Yes.
So we might have you on.
Supposedly that's when it's going to air.
Right.
Yeah. I can't guarantee it, but that's what I was told.
So if it is, we might pull in David for 5 minutes right before William Hung goes on. So maybe you could share what the series is so we can go watch it and tune it in live. Watch it like we used to watch TV back in the olden days, right? Like before we could record on the DVR. Any final tips before we hop over to the other?
No, I don't know how this is working. My atomic clock is showing 7:30. So has it already started?
It will probably premiere like in seconds, and I'm going to post this in the comments so you guys can all just click on that link in the comments.
And then do I click on the link to go over?
Yes. So it'll be on YouTube, and then there'll be when it premieres, it allows you to chat. So there'll be a little, if it doesn't show it right away, there'll be the 3 dots over on the side. You just click on it and it'll pop out the chat. And that way, if people are asking questions or engaging, I will tell you more people watch me on Facebook right now. Yeah. Not many people know I have the YouTube channel. So if we don't see you all over there, we're going to like what's the high ticket out of there and go take it out. Hightail it. That's the expression. Thank you, David. Thank you. See, if we were recording this, I could have just clipped that out. Instead, we get to show you that you can use flaws and, it's still okay. I didn't die, even though I didn't say the right word, right? That's what you teach in your course. You won't die. Just be yourself. So thank you for coming on, David. We're definitely going to have you back, and maybe next week so you could talk about the show that you're on with full permissions. And I'm looking forward to hearing what you think about your interview as it was cut and edited.
Awesome. So should I go there now?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Bye.
All right. Ciao. See you over there. Bye, David.